Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. This is In Candor. I hope that revealing the following, usually interior thoughts, may be of interest or even of value to you, if only to provide a bit of reassurance that you're not the only one who feels in a non-standard way. Anyway, here goes. First regarding myself, and then we'll get to people and policy. I'm scared of doctors. Not just because they sometimes don't know, but because we're all just one blood test from a death sentence. My fear of dying usually keeps me between vigilant and terrified. Therapy didn't help, reading hasn't helped. The only thing that has helped, distraction, staying busy, for example, caring for others. My worrywart, bald face is off-putting, really. I'm a worrier, in part because I crave stimulation, even though I know it's to my detriment. I rarely am able to change people's opinions. I'm too intense, too know-it-all, impatient when people, loud and proud, assert what I believe are inferior ideas. I'm exuberant ever less often. I vacillate between thinking I'm brilliant and that I'm far from it. I usually am happiest when I'm alone with my thoughts, my writing, my reading, and taking a walk. I'm genetically predisposed to intelligence and to anger. I value the practical over the spiritual, much so. I value efficiency because it makes the most of our precious time. I am sad and befuddled as to why I have few readers and viewers. I refuse to play the dishonest game of one hand washing the other, for example. I'll tout you, expecting you to do that for me, even if you're not enthusiastic about me. I sniff at the frou-frou, fancy restaurants, fancy wine, jewelry, clothes, and cars like Mercedes and BMW, which require more service and break down more often than Toyotas do. There's nothing prestigious about standing on the side of the road waiting for the tow truck. I get plenty of novelty without travel. People, places, restaurants, videos, books. I feel that far-flung travel is too rarely worth the cost, hassle, and time. Starting with the Beatles and accelerating from there, I find pop music more annoying than musical. Laugh at me, but I love the beautiful orchestral arrangements of easy-listening so-called elevator music and Josh Groban. I shake my head at people whose heroes are performers, athletes, or politicians, rather than, for example, scientists who developed GPS, the iPhone, and the birth control pill. I like humankind. People not so much. Some claim it takes a village, but I've had better results in mainly trusting myself. After all, millions of Germany's citizens supported Hitler and his genocide of the Jewish people. That helps me realize that many people have the potential to do, or at least condone, evil. I tend to follow the rule of thumb that's offered by my dad. Respect, but suspect. Now some thoughts about people. Too many people are undeservedly pleased with themselves. Most successful people are self-critical, questioning themselves, ever trying to improve and be more productive. But these days, even virtuosity is questioned, mainly by low achievers. Aspire to excellence. People are more interesting than nature is. People are less static. Today's mantra, at least among the young, is, we're not human doings, we're human beings. I couldn't disagree more. Patriotism is shallow. We should care as much about someone in Bangladesh as in Bakersfield. It is disempowering to externalize responsibility for one's failures. There is an ever-growing set of excuses: childhood trauma, racism, sexism, elitism, capitalism, and now gaslighting. Sometimes the, quote, victim is simply wrong. Smilers can be evil. There are limits on how honest you can be even with loved ones. Till death do us part is an awfully demanding promise. For many people, a promise isn't a promise. If they don't keep one, they may just shrug. Weak job search candidates are more likely to resort to sleazy tactics which shall go unnamed here. More worthy candidates thus are denied rightful employment. Not only does that hurt them, it hurts co-workers, bosses, buyers of the products or services, and in turn all of us. Employers Get your candidates mainly from trusted colleagues, and choose mainly based on simulations of the job's common but difficult tasks. Tech will make the world better. The masses and their leaders will make it worse. In the abstract, we readily acknowledge that genes are prerequisite to environment's effects. You could tune up a VW Bug perfectly and it won't beat a Porsche. In a different sphere, every mom knows that her baby has enduring predispositions, discernible maybe even in utero. A more rigorous data point? Studies of identical twins raised apart vividly demonstrate the potency of genes. So we may be wise to accept our basic self. Yeah, tweak, but accept our basic self. Yet self-help gurus imply that we're infinitely malleable. Dream it and you can do it. Power pose, just have a growth mindset. Incorrect. Understanding the genome offers powerful new hope for curing diseases, physical and mental. With sufficient ethical guardrails, gene therapy could allow us to improve human altruism and problem solving, thus accelerating our solving problems such as climate change, and providing good government while reducing our trillions of dollars of debt. We're told to not be judgmental, but I believe we should be more judgmental. Judgment, or its more acceptable synonym, discernment, is a hallmark of the civilized society. It's detrimental to us as individuals and as a society to venerate "it's all cool" acceptance of people, cultures, and arts. Give me a wise person over an overconfident one. Give me a culture that values restraint and hard work over a feeling-centric do-it-now culture. Give me the overture to Gypsy over Black Sabbath's War Pigs. Now turning to policy. First, a quote from Bill Clinton. He wrote in one of his books, "Our willingness to believe the worst about everyone outside our own bubble is growing, and our ability to solve problems and seize opportunities is shrinking." End quote. Thus, in creating the following list, I have prioritized ideas that fall outside of Medium.com's most touted postings. I am saddened by today's truncation of debate about society's core issues. For example, capitalism, global warming, illegal immigration, gender, and especially race. The best solutions most likely will accrue from free exchange in the marketplace of ideas. Alas, today positions that dare veer from the orthodoxy are ever more subject to what I call the 3 C's: censure, censor, and cancel. Those 3 are short-term feel-goods to their wielders, but long-term devolve society to an ever lower common denominator. I used to respect journalists, but now most live in a tight bubble, impervious to and annihilating of most views that dare oppose yet more redistribution. That's very short-sighted. Beyond providing a basic safety net for all, redistribution from those who are more likely to contribute also causes society's degradation. Our tax dollars are so abused, and by the way I have citations for all of these assertions. For example, the U.S. Department of Defense has $824 billion in expenses not fully accounted for. Despite an 80% decrease in the use of U.S. mail, the Postal Service added 190,000 more positions. In 2023 alone, illegal immigration cost the taxpayer $150.7 billion. The number of laws and regulations has ballooned from 9,745 pages in 1950 to 186,000 in 2019, the most recent year studied. And the General Accounting Office found $248 billion of fraud and waste in 2022 alone. I doubt that either trend has reversed. Can any politician honestly say that we receive even decent value from our tax payments? Most corporations are a net good. Their efficiency and expertise enable even low-income people to afford most things, from food to iPhones. Corporations developed everything from GPS to the birth control pill. New laws can punish an employer for not hiring a felon. How do you think a law-abiding citizen feels at losing a job because he or she wasn't a felon? It is not in society's best interest to punish the law-abiding to reward the lawbreakers. If you're successful, our hyper-progressive taxation makes it difficult to enjoy the rewards of your ability and hard work. According to the Tax Foundation, the top 1% of earners pay 40% of the federal income tax. The top 10% pay 72% of the income tax. The world is making trillion-dollar commitments to try to control the planet's climate. The dollar cost and pain to our daily life are large and will only increase. For example, sitting in ever more gridlock, paying more to fill our tank and to heat and cool our home. To expand on merely one example, government's efforts to force us out of our car and into mass transit, even though it can be hard to get to the mass transit and from the mass transit stop to our destination and back. But oh, the government's machinations. The transportation stated to go to roads should be building lanes, but they're to reduce the blood pressure busting traffic, but too often it's spent on reducing lanes. For example, replacing car lanes with largely unused bike lanes or shrub clumps, blocked off streets which will increase traffic, and million-dollar traffic-causing, accident-causing multi-entrance roundabouts. Then there's the increasing government-imposed costs of driving, climbing gas taxes. It costs me over $10 in tax just to fill my Prius. Usurious parking tickets, $100 around here in Oakland, Berkeley. Hundreds of dollars for a red light ticket, and soon cameras will automatically ticket us for speeding. Tolls were supposed to expire when the bridge or tunnel was built. Instead, they keep rising, with ever more lanes requiring a toll, notwithstanding the marketing-derived term, express lanes. Will all this make enough difference to the climate? Unlikely, given that, for example, developing nations and China are building coal-fired plants fast and furious because it's much cheaper, thus helping to save their people from destitution. The wisdom of imposing such costs on us requires that all of the following assumptions be true. 1. The net effect of the projected 2.7-degree increase in average global temperature over the next 75 years is a net negative, outweighing, for example, the increased arable land in cold climates and that many more people die in cold weather than hot. That the proposed spending and restrictions on our use of oil and gas would drop the average global temperature enough to make the spending and restrictions worth it. That the world's 195 countries will continue major green spending and greatly reduce their use of fossil fuels for the next 50 to 75 years when technology promises to offer us a permanent solution. That, despite the aforementioned powerful reasons that countries have to deprioritize green in favor of keeping their populace from destitution. China alone emits more CO2 than the entire Western Hemisphere. It also assumes, the big spend on green assumes, that new technologies such as nuclear fusion, hydrogen power, sodium power, and safe enough nuclear won't sufficiently address the problem. The joint probability of those assumptions is too low to justify the costs, including the opportunity costs, what the money and effort and restrictions on human freedom could otherwise buy. For example, an all-out assault on cancer. Regarding climate change, I believe it's wiser to make just modest incursions on human freedom, such as increasing gas mileage standards, and instead invest in long-term clean energy research, such as the areas I've mentioned. Most, quote, privilege is earned. Quote, surrender your privilege is anti-merit, ultimately anti-gross world flourishing. We can less often count on merit trumping other factors in selection. That's particularly visible in the life and death medical school reverse discrimination admissions policies. And again, I have citations for all these. And in discordant with reality portrayals of demographic groups in TV shows, movies, and commercials. For example, increasingly, when I see a black person on screen, I'm usually correct in assuming it'll be a positive character. Today, hiring and promotion are much affected by race. I base that largely on having been career counselor to more than 6,000 people of diverse race and gender. So many of my clients insist they were passed over for a worse candidate of the, quote, right demographic. If the legacy of slavery, unconscious bias, and systemic racism are causing the intractable, long-standing, wide black versus white versus Asian achievement gap, then why, for hundreds of years in countries with and without slavery, Colonized or not, majority black or not, why are blacks at the bottom in achievement, top in crime? Are men so bad that we're fine with bashing them? For example, men do the grungy, dangerous work that few women will, from roofer to sewer to infantryman. We wouldn't criticize women, let alone BIPOCs, that's black and indigenous people of color. If we did, we'd likely suffer the 3 C's, censure, censor, or cancel. Atop that, in so many news shows, and especially movies, TV shows, and novels, a spunky smart woman triumphs over an evil or clueless guy. Rarely do we see the reverse. And when women have a deficit, say they're, quote, underrepresented in science, there's massive redress and sometimes reverse discrimination. Yet when men have the ultimate deficit, they live 6 years shorter than women, their last decade in worse health, and there are 4.4 widows for every widower. A review of 60 years of PubMed, which indexes most medical journals, finds hundreds of % more studies with the keywords women's health than men's health. I am dispirited by the media's and some people's visceral support for societally deleterious ideas such as 4B, quote, don't touch men, half the population. The world would be worse. Besides, would we dare say don't touch blacks? If a Martian descended onto Earth and observed the news and entertainment media, it would conclude that white males are the Earth's scourge and others are its savior. The world is tough, and when we come home, we don't want to face a buster of either sex. Education is America's most overrated and overfunded product. The U.S. spends near the top per student worldwide, yet among developed nations scores near bottom. And again, I have citations for all of these assertions in the text version of this, which is on medium.com. Merely from 2021 to 2024, the U.S. Department of Education has spent more than $1 billion on race-based hiring and DEI programs, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Head Start cheerleader Barack Obama, seeking support for yet more spending on it, commissioned a meta-evaluation of Head Start. That's an evaluation of many studies. The result? Head Start makes no enduring difference. Liberals, however, continue to pitch for Head Start and education in general because it sounds good to voters, which aids their re-election. A major nationwide study called Academically Adrift found that in the core competencies of writing and critical thinking, between the freshman and senior year of college, 36% of students grew not at all. Many studies have demonstrated universities have a growing bias. For example, in New England states, the ratio of liberal to conservative professors was 28-1 in a recent year, up from just 5-1 2 decades earlier. Yet the Robin Hooding sticker price for 4 years at a coastal brand-name private college is over $300,000, and many students take 5 years or even longer. And even graduates may find it hard to find a job better than what they could have gotten with a mere high school diploma. I remember reading in The Atlantic that 52% of students were taking jobs they could have gotten without college. 50% of graduates. A very recent Wall Street Journal reports that even many Harvard MBAs struggle to find jobs. Again, I have citations for all this in the text version. And all those music, art, and theater majors, a cottage industry thrives in working with wannabes fighting for too few arts jobs. Dare we ask our child's teacher to do more for our bright child? The common unspoken message is, he or she is privileged. We must focus on the least among us. Meanwhile, our child's significant potential to improve society goes too unrealized. And there he or she sits stultified in the now de rigueur redistributive mixed ability class for 180 school days for a decade or a little longer. Most of us get frustrated at a boring few minutes. Despite all the redistribution from high to low achieving students, for example, eliminating classes for the gifted, while mushroom the spend on low achievers and special ed students, the achievement gap remains as wide as ever, while taxpayer wallets are ever lighter. Natural intelligence is already in some case trumped by artificial intelligence, and the gap will grow. One example, notwithstanding the teachers' union prioritizing teachers' jobs over children's learning, AI-assisted and eventually AI-taught students will be the norm, enabling all children to have world-class, individualized instruction in any language, at any pace, in any style, auditory, visual, kinesthetic, and so on. Already, AI instruction is being trialed at something called the Unbound Academy in Arizona. Imagine that two people are lost at sea with only enough food for one. One of the people is a promising cancer researcher, while the other, to be polite, has far less potential to improve humankind. Most people would wisely give the food to the cancer researcher, yet the fashionable so-called effective altruism movement does the opposite, focusing on the least among us. Each dollar, each minute of effort that we redistribute from greater contributors to others ensures societal decline, a reduction in gross world flourishing. That includes condoning, even encouraging illegal immigration. That pool is overrepresented by people unsuccessful in their home country and by definition who are willing to be a lawbreaker to sneak into the U.S. Ultimately, that's bad not just for the receiving countries, but even ironically for liberal activists. Money spent on illegals' welfare, health care, housing, education, crime, and substance abuse means less money for other liberal causes, things green, poverty programs, radicalizing education, and gifts to, quote, developing nations. It's harder to get an appointment, let alone with the doctor you want. In part, that's because the system is trying to provide free health care to everyone, including non-payers, legal and not. And fee-for-service has largely been replaced by Medicare and private insurance, both of which often deny payment. Israel is subjected to a vicious double standard compared with, for example, the atavistic, sexist, brutal treatment of women and exclusion of non-Muslims in many Muslim countries. This is ironic in terms of Israeli accomplishment, including in, quote, social justice. Imagine a terrorist group committed to America's destruction, and for 30 years it bombed everything from buses to weddings. Then on October 7th, 2023, that terrorist group, duly elected by its populace, took 200 hostages, killed 1,200 people, including infants, and tossed around killed women's breasts like a football. Would your response be just proportionate as the activists urge? Or would you destroy the terrorist group so it couldn't rearm and terrorize more? Yet the world, led by the media and whipped-up college students, blame Israel. Choosing when to die is the most intimate decision, yet government's long arm makes it illegal or onerously difficult. Finally, a group of one-liners. Life goes fast. Most hard workers are heroic, not workaholic. Family is overrated. Be judgmental, it's central. Stop looking back, take the next step forward. Nearly all is part genes, part environment. Self-esteem can encourage complacency. Status is the enemy of contentment. Unproductive people may make excuses, but some people simply are lazy. Ideological diversity should trump melanin diversity. Global warming fears are too fevered. Men deserve better treatment. The loud and proud should be quieter. And in conclusion, any credit for my having been candid with you warrants tempering. When you're old like me, I'll be 75 in June, you have less to lose. I just hope that you find this of some benefit and that you don't hate me too much. In any event, that's called In Candor. As usual, I welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. If you choose to subscribe to my channel, and certainly would welcome you to take a look at any of my 34 books. Perhaps the most relevant to this is A Dose of Reality, but all 34 are on Amazon. In any event, I do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.